project, on the north portion on the right side here, you're going to notice we've got a begin right turn lane. Now in this one, we're going to go ahead and do this a little bit different. And so on this particular one, I have an ability, let me zoom out here on my model, and come in over here just so y'all can see this a little bit better. I think it's about right there. What we've done is our designer has gone and drawn some of that graphic, and he says, here's the edge of pavement, this is how it's supposed to look. And my template doesn't need to be a super template to be able to do some of these cool adjustments. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to apply excuse me, a point control over the range. Now in this instance, what I'm going to do is come up to our editing tools, and we're going to go straight in. You're going to see it's the one on the bottom, and I'm usually the one cleaning up people's work, so I usually tell you it's on the bottom because it's the last one you should be applying. You should try to apply the other commands first, because everybody sees what this does and they're like, I'm using it on everything. And we actually have a Bentley colleague now that was a user, and Dan did every single line as a point control that he drew. And you know he didn't need that, but he did, and you didn't know. And he was like, oh, it looks great, but then the model was really slow, and the experience was very sour. But what we're going to do is use this command. And it's for when you're trying to follow very organic, volatile limits, is what I would say. Non-uniform stuff, where it's just too erratic. Parametric constraints or some of these other techniques are when they're very clean. It's a better use case to use those. For today, we're just showing the other technique, that's all. And so what we're going to do is execute this create point control command. Now when we do it, wants to locate the corridor. And I'm going to come over and just select that corridor of London Road. I'm locating it with my mouse. Remember, certain things you can't pick, so see, wrong item, it won't let you. So just kind of hover over till you find that. We're going to left click, and it says, where do you want to start? Well, in this case, Scott gave me another handy dandy line, and so I'm going to use that start template drop right turn lane. I'm going to left click on it. Now where that ends, well, I already know. I mean, technically it's at 91. So I'm going to put in 9100 and hit tab. When we do this, I'd left click to confirm, like all other commands I've been inputting. And this is a tricky piece. It's really good to be consistent, document things, make them obvious, clean. Don't just say, temp, test, do not delete, Don. Like, that's a horrible description. Don't do that. Especially when it's like, don't delete, temp. I never can wrap my head around that. But in this instance, we're going to give it a description. You have to give it a description for point control. And so we're just going to call it what it is. This is the right edge of pavement control. So we're going to let people know that that edge of pavement is controlling it. So I'm keying in that value. And then I'm just going to left click to confirm that name. Now, it's asking me to locate the point. Now, many of you may not know this. It's kind of a cool capability, but if I had a cross-section window open, I could actually move my mouse on the cross-section itself in the dynamic display and pick it, and it would read the point in. Or I can pick it from the plan view where the point is as a line string, because we're extruding a point makes a line. So there's a couple other ways you can do it, but for today, let's keep it simple, and I'm going to use a drop-down for everybody. And so on here, when it asks for the point, I'm looking at this section on the dialog. Right in the middle, it says point. Let's just kind of come over to the drop-down. There's a whole bunch of points in here, guys. Now, on this one, it's EOP. So, I could, in some cases, hit E. It'll get me at least in the ballpark, but you'll see I had a lot of E's, so didn't really play well, right? So you can see having good point naming systems can make it a little bit more elegant, but sometimes you just got to deal. So I've scrolled down. Let's find the EOP_R. So I've scrolled down. I use my mouse wheel. I don't actually grab the slider because it's so skinny. You move your mouse off and then it collapses and you got to do it all over again. So we're going to do EOPR and pick it. Now when I pick that, we've got a mode of adjustment. So all we really care about is that it's horizontally different. I want the cross slope to continue out as it, extends out that offset. So whatever the slope is, just keep carrying the slope out. So I don't want to adjust the vertical today, but you could. That's how super works, actually. And in this instance, we're going to keep it horizontal because that's the only change we really need. The control type is linear. It's linear geometry. This was drawn in here. And then it wants us to essentially confirm a few things. So I'm just going to left click. So it is a mode of horizontal. It is linear geometry. And it says, let's go pick it. So now, you told me what point, but what is that point supposed to follow? And so what we're going to do is come in, and we're going to navigate to that edge of pavement line. And we're kind of pointing at it, so just pay close attention to where that arrow is for right edge of pavement. And we're going to come in, and it's this cyan line right there where the arrowhead's coming in, and we're going to select that. When we left click on it, now it's asking, do you want to use it as secondary alignment? See, point control is not only capable of following an element horizontally and vertically, but it also has an extended function of that secondary alignment we just learned about. Yes, I do want that. I want to fix that sidewalk. I don't want to run another command just for the sake of running another command. So let's go ahead, in this case, and say yes. Now, a cool little shortcut. Yes and no. If you hit Y or N on your keyboard, it'll go to the other one in the pull down. If you use the up or down arrow, it'll also cycle through it. So just a little tip. When we go ahead and left click to accept, I'm not going to get into the priorities. There aren't any others to worry about, so we're just going to keep it at 1 for today. And then what offsets? Well, that line was drawn in a very specific spot. I just want it to follow exactly that, but you could offer some offsets in the start and stop. Let's go ahead with 0 for the start and 0 for the stop. I want it to follow that exact line work right where we drew it. Once we left click through those options, you'll see the road adjusts. So it now is telling that point in the template to just go find where that line is and adjust everything else with it. That's a pretty big, transaction. And notice in some cases, it has to put in more intervals, things like that, in order to compensate for that. So, any questions about that? Another technique. That's all.